a neuroscientist and you're eating the brains, yeah, no wonder they're trying to shut down science.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, this is why you don't get any more money. I mean, but also it could be like a smart way to use your research dollars too, right? Like we're not gonna have to pay for your lunch because you're gonna do the research and then make yourself lunch afterwards. Smash that like subscribe button.
Welcome to Arguments in Logic, episode 9, where we put the...
Wait, don't you think we should introduce ourselves first?
Well, I just thought we could mix it up a little this time, you know?
Well, if that's what we're going for, then you nailed it, brother. Nailed it.
Well, like I said, welcome to Arguments in Logic, where we put the...
Critic and critical thinking.
Brilliant! I'm Patrick Frazier.
And I'm Robert Sykes.
Before we do our clickbait headline, it occurred to me that we haven't done enough arguments on a show with arguments in the title, you know? Like, seriously. So, here's the challenge.
True.
Right? So, I'm going to throw out an unusual argument, and Robert gets to dismantle it, but I don't get to respond on this episode, and probably not ever, unless, yes, there's a gimmick here, unless you people explain in the comments how he used a logical fallacy like appeal to authority or slippery slope. That one I'm not a fan of, but I digress. If you do a slippery slope, I'm going to accept it. The straw man.
I mean, it is. It's a good one for the slippery slope. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, I mean, so why are logical fallacies important? Like, why should we not use them in arguments, and why should I care?
Yes. Why? Why do I care?
That's a good question. I mean, here's the deal, right? We have a lot of arguments that go on in politics and on media and Facebook and all over. And look, I am not a saint and I'm not perfect at this, nor is anyone. But the idea is to be a good enough critical thinker that you can have an argument without using a logical fallacy. And therefore, it kind of keeps things more civil, and also it allows you to actually argue points in a way that is rational.
Right.
You know, and so you're not, I mean, the slippery slope is the one they always like to use, in politics especially, is, if the real famous one is smoking marijuana leads to harder drugs, right? And I mean, it's a slippery slope. If you start smoking weed, next thing you know, you're going to be shooting up heroin in some crack house in Compton, and that's the problem with that, is you're not actually framing your argument on any kind of factual basis. You're just saying you're invoking emotions or fear, and if we were better at this, and if we taught this more, people would be better able to evaluate information, and we wouldn't end up with terrible leaders.
True.
Not naming any names.
Right.
But
I know both sidism is a sin, but they are on both sides. One side might be worse, but they are on both sides.
Yes. 100%. All right, so let's get this gimmick going then. I mean, experiment. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. A little bit of a straw man there. No. Anyway, so here we go. The notion that a person ought not concern themselves with the plight of a community or outgroup for which they do not belong ignores the risks that once various outgroups are culled, said person could find themselves in a new outgroup subject to similar recriminations.
Okay, so hold on. I want to stop you for 1 second on this.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's break that. I know I wasn't supposed to interrupt, but let's make this simpler for people to understand. What are we actually talking about?
Okay, story time. Okay, so quick. I was in a sales job at a bank that rhymes with Bell's Cargo. I don't know what that would be. Sales job. One day, this guy says, I was the only other male human person, and he says, "Hey, is anybody else in this class gay?" And nobody, strangely enough, said, "Yes, I am gay." Strange. Anyway, and everybody else was a woman anyway, but
Not that that has anything to do with being gay, but yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah. So they're just gonna out themselves, and yeah, and I'm straight, but still, it's not the point. Then dude says, "Well, I think we should put all the gays on an island. Just put them all on an island, and just let them be on the island by themselves. World would be a much better place that way." And I proceed to tell him the poem, and I forget which group it is, let alone how it rhymes, or if I don't know, not all poems rhyme. But I said the thing about, well, first they came for the gypsies. I said nothing because I wasn't a gypsy. Then they came for the, what was it, the trade unionists, I think. And I said nothing because it wasn't a trade
Yeah,
unionist. And
yeah,
then
it wasn't actually the gypsies, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
then and
It was,
ultimately then they came for the Jews. I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew, and then
mhm.
they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. And dude says, "Well, what does that mean?" So if I'd read this, he would have been completely lost. And at that point, I explained to him, it's about Nazism, it's about like the Holocaust, World War II. Like eventually, somebody became a member of the out group. They thought, well, they didn't need to speak up for some out group because they weren't a member of that group, but eventually they were a member of a group for which recriminations came knocking on their door, and it was too late. And dude says, well, I'm not a Nazi. And he was literally sitting next to an Israeli girl. Like literally, her parents were
Yeah.
from Israel, and he's like, no, you're not a Nazi. You're a good guy. Like, dude wants to put people in a like a literal island.
An island. But yeah. Yeah, so this is, one of the more famous things of this was, the whole drug war, right? Was like, I don't care about this or laws in general, right? Like,
Right.
I don't care that we are locking people up for doing cocaine because I don't do cocaine, or I don't care that they are trampling on so and so's civil rights because I'm not a member of that group, or if
Hmm.
we took it into to the extreme, it would be like, I don't care about Black Lives Matter because I'm not black, right?
Correct.
So that's the idea. Okay, proceed on with your argument.
All right. So, if you're taking notes, so I'm taking ethics for scientists and engineers, so maybe this is where the verbiage comes from. But if you're taking notes, this is called consequentialism, broadly speaking. But it requires widespread agreement from disparate parties around setting social norms and rules of conduct. Otherwise, you'll fall into a spiraling prisoner's dilemma death trap in which any rational actor will necessarily discount for the expectation that the other guy will invariably screw them over. So somehow you have to convince the prisoners that they outnumber the prison guards. Except if you have too many rules, then no one can own any private property because Stalin 2.0 is in charge. But if you don't have enough rules, then no one owns any private property because some dude who calls himself tech support, I don't know who that could be, tripping balls on something called ketamine. I'm not making any accusations. Owns all the private property, which is why not just this country, but humanity is screwed. So, my comment.
Okay. And okay, well, my rebuttal to that and um, why I think that being concerned about the group, although noble, is not important. So these kind of discussions about moral responsibility, they often emphasize this idea that we should speak out against injustices even if we're not directly affected. the poem that you referenced is it's called First They Came,
Hmm.
and it's this idea that if more people had spoken out against the Nazi regime earlier, its atrocities, could have been prevented. And really, this is just some moral idealism. It's admirable, but it's not really pragmatic. A more logical approach prioritizes self-preservation and the well-being of one's in-group over concerned and distant out-groups. Um, it's important to recognize there's limitations of individual influence, especially in oppressive systems like Germany or Stalin's Russia, right? It can be dangerous, and even in modern societies, voicing certain opinions, it's even now with TikTok and going viral and social media carries significant risks. These statements can be taken out of context, and they can lead to serious personal consequences. People lose their jobs all the time over things like this, or have their lives ruined. So really, self-preservation and prioritizing the in-group are the rational and they're deeply ingrained aspects of human nature in our society. Resources are limited. I have a limited amount of time. I have a limited amount of effort. I have a limited amount of things that I can do in the world. So it makes sense for individuals to focus on survival and the well-being of those closest to them, not spend a whole bunch of time trying to solve every problem in the world. While universal empathy is ideal, it's not very practical in real world, in the real world. Strategic and the prisoner's dilemma is another thing. Like, strategic cooperation is complex. Game theory shows that cooperation sometimes yields mutual benefits, but self-interest frequently dictates the decision making in the real world. People assess risks and rewards based on their own circumstances rather than these abstract moral ideals. Again, this is concern for others is a noble ideal, but we are constrained by limited resources. The rational approach is to prioritize the well-being of one's in-group, as speaking out carries risks that not always lead to meaningful change. Individuals and communities naturally act in their own self-interest then to their interests that are strategically beneficial to themselves and those closest to them.
That was a good argument. I'm only disappointed that you had no ad hominem attacks or anything that I would discern.
Here, I can add
It's
one at the end.
only fact.
Patrick, you're stupid.
Yes, there you go. There we go. So if anyone pays attention, now we can actually get a comment and I can respond to this. But otherwise, the gentlemen's and ladies code, I don't know. I don't need to gender it, is that I never respond. But that was actually a pretty good argument. I think we would be in a better world if we could actually have coherent arguments like we just engaged in. That was cool. Well,
Yeah. So all you kids out there, take debate. This is where they do things like this, and although it's kind of slid a little bit, but in debate, in theory, you're supposed to argue this way, and we would keep going on, and we would be scored. But yeah, take debate. Debate's fun.
yeah, a lot of the schools still have speech and debate, but yeah, do it. Keep that alive, and adults channel this. I know. Anyway, I digress. While I recover from that truly scorching argument in which you just dismantled me completely, why don't you go ahead and get the game rolling with our clickbait?
Oh yeah. This one was generated by a AI that everybody knows, which remains nameless. And this is today's clickbait argument. We mapped a brain, but it's useless. The Connectome's hidden flaw.
Brilliant!
Seriously? Is that your new catchphrase?
Yeah, well, how am I supposed to compete with Nailed It? And now you've got Stay Frosty? Come on, give me something.
So I think you used AI to generate this clickbait headline, but the idea for this topic comes from an episode of our podcast. If you're a regular listener, which I know you're not, we're going to put in a link in the description, put a link to the description.
And I am a regular listener of Mindscape, so I realize not a lot of people are, but it's a really good podcast if you ever want to learn cool stuff from various academics that Sean Carroll, who's a theoretical physicist, interviews. It's a good show. But correct the podcast. It's awesome. He interviews this guy, neuroscientist Jeff Lickman, who really discusses the process of the computational model that's necessary in order to model it eventually, if not the human brain, the mouse brain.
Yeah, and Lickman is that he's the key figure, right? In
Mm-hmm.
connectonom, I can't even say it.
Yeah,
Connectonomics. That's a tough word to say. And
yes.
that's where that we want to they're trying to create these comprehensive maps of the connections between brain cells, which is fascinating stuff and super complex, to do because you're talking about billions and billions. It's probably more, isn't it more? It's it's probably more than billions of connections. I mean, I don't
Yeah, it's
know
like
off the top of my head.
it's almost a cliche. It's like it's more than the stars in the night sky. I think that it's been a while since I listened to the podcast, but yeah, it's a crazy number. But yeah, now we're cooking with jalapenos, or should I say mouse brains?
Ugh,
Since
that doesn't sound good.
right, no, it doesn't, but it's funny, it's snappy. Since that is seen as the next achieved milestone, they recently successfully modeled the fruit fly brain, and fruit fly brains doesn't sound as tasty as mouse brains. Let's be real.
No, nor does it sound nearly as complex.
No, but it was a monumental achievement, and now they're on to our friend the mouse.
I mean, you got to start somewhere. So in the show, you link the physicist interviews the neuroscientists about how they just modeled the brain of the fruit fly, but I suppose, yeah, they do sound more tasty. That's for sure.
Right. Although, if you're a neuroscientist and you're eating the brains, yeah, no wonder they're trying to shut down science.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, this is why you don't get any more money. I mean, but also it could be like a smart way to use your research dollars too, right? Like we're not gonna have to pay for your lunch because you're gonna do the research and then make yourself lunch afterwards.
That's correct. That's thinking. That's fiscally conservative, kids.
Yeah, that's what we should be doing.
That's correct. Well, to
So
be
they
fair,
mapped the fruit fly brain,
hmm
which I don't remember if they told like how many connections that has and how complex that was or not. I don't know if they went into that. I can't remember.
they went into a lot of stuff, but it's a reason to listen to the podcast again. At least read through the transcript, kids. Like our one viewer can do that. You you can do that.
Yeah.
But to be fair, though, they are now working on modeling the mouse brain, which we discussed. That's their next endeavor. But to me, the most interesting thing in the episode is at the end. It would be challenging to ever model the human brain, and they talk about that. And Sean Carroll really gets him to say why, at least according to Lickman, that might not be achievable. And on that note, if this were a real podcast, this is where we'd cut cut away to an ad for the newest incredible manscaping tool. Nobody needs to see that. Or we'd tell you to support us on Patreon. But
I mean, this is a real podcast. It's just because nobody's watching doesn't mean it's not real. Nobody bought Da Vinci's art either.
it's true. That's true. Well, agreed. But
And
this
nobody
is
wants to see us talk about manscaping. Well, wait, hold on. What I use when I manscape is
yeah, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Anyway, so agreed. But this is a great time to remind the viewer if you happen to wake up at this time, this is a great time for you to click on the link in the description to get you your very own Schrodinger's cat t shirt.
as you see here,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Good, good.
just like this one.
Just like that one, right?
We have a
Uh,
couple other t-shirts in there too as well.
there you see, there's lots of great
What
opportunities.
a yeah. What a better way to wear when, one of your viewers cuddles up at night. It's just in this cuddly, I don't know if it's very cuddly or not.
It's kind of
But you
late.
could fall gently asleep, to your nerdy cat t-shirt while you're listening to our podcast. You know, I mean, or you could wear it out. People won't understand it. You'll be one of those guys who's just so heady and like smart that nobody understands what your t-shirt means.
Right. Exactly. Um, Also, don't forget to like and subscribe for more arguments and logic.
Smash that like subscribe button.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think. I also think I think we shouldn't forget to talk about why it's important to map the brain because it has to do with the connectome, right?
Yes. In other words, what is the connectome? The host compares this to like a circuit diagram because it maps the connection. When we talked about that, the connections between the neurons in the brain, similar to how a circuit diagram maps the connections between components in an electronic circuit.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think the whole idea is that you know they did the fruit fly brain. Now they're going to try the mouse brain, and you have to do this. When you watch the video, you'll see that you have to do this complex thing where you got to like have the brain die like within seconds and get it into a
Hmm.
solution and then map it. But that look, all science goes through this. All everything we do. I mean, remember they talked about our inability to ever go to the moon. They
Right.
talked about our inability to ever fly. They've talked about our inability to ever harness electricity. They've
Hmm.
talked about our inability to have quantum computing. They've talked so on and on and on and on and on again. The second you say something's impossible, that's crazy. That's just crazy. Yes, today with the technology that we're using, it's difficult at best. But even with the technology that we have, that doesn't mean that there isn't someone out there that wouldn't be willing to submit. There's many different ways you could slice this, right?
Yeah.
You have states that allow assisted suicide. Maybe you just need to partner with some people who want to be scientific research and do assisted suicide. So, you know, they, I don't know how they do it, but they're ready to go and they just off themselves and we take the brain and we map it. I don't know. I mean, that's how I think you could logically solve it the way it is now, although difficult. Um, but also, we don't know I mean, maybe there's a way we can do it with fMRI. Maybe that we have a deeper scan. Maybe I don't know. The thing is it's just, it, it's not an easy problem to solve, but that's what science does, right? Is they solve hard problems. I mean, I think we just have Elon Musk do it. Like, he'll figure it out in like 3 days, right?
Yeah. He might
Or at
even.
least he'll say he'll have it figured out in 3 days, and then it'll really be like 16 years and never get done. I
Yeah.
think that's
Why
what
do
it
I
is.
why do I picture Elon with some formaldehyde on the side, with a little knife, and he's like, nothing better to have, pouring a glass of, I don't think I can pronounce this, of Sinclair, Uh, close saying hun.
What are you saying? Are,
I'm trying to do
are
it,
you
but
trying to say close say whom?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that is that a really bad sign? Oh, it's a really bad Silence of the Lambs joke, isn't it?
Yes, very bad, very
Okay.
bad. AI helped me with the
He,
joke. Okay.
but that's a good point because he would make a great. Who is what is the name? I can't even think of the name
Hannibal
of the
Lecter.
person.
Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, Hannibal Lecter. I just it just went out of my brain. Oh man, he would be the best Hannibal Lecter for Halloween ever.
He would. He would. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But in fairness, Lichtman does mention that the animal models, so this is some of what you were talking about, Robert, including mice, may be informative for understanding disorders like schizophrenia and autism. One reason is that underlying processes in the fight or flight process, like when a mouse uses its sense organs to communicate a fear response when like a big bad hawk is coming down, aren't really fundamentally different from what goes on in our brains. So, we may not want to anthropomorphize some of these animals, but we may be overly anthropomorphizing ourselves, thinking that we're somehow more special than we really are. And his point is, we can glean a lot from our friend Mickey the mouse. So there's hope.
Yeah, I mean, well, really Mickey's brain, but
Yes.
I mean that's the whole idea, right? Is we don't know what's going to come out of these kind of research points that we do. There's numerous examples throughout history of one piece of research leading to another thing that becomes, far more important than we ever thought. I mean, Bell Labs, when they did all their when they were really big doing their technology, they invented all kinds of things that just for no other just by doing research, just by coming up with these ideas that then led us to much deeper technological revolution than we would have had without them being around. They found things, they developed things like IEEE standard 1394, I believe, if I remember right, from my computer classes, which is Ethernet. I'm pretty sure that they were responsible for that, and so and that was just money that Bell Labs was it? I don't know if it was Pac Bell at the time. I don't think it was, but it was just money that a corporation was throwing into research. And so, and there's numerous examples of other research that's gone on outside of the private sector. Right. So that's the idea. Like research is important. It doesn't always give you the results you need, but it doesn't mean that it's not valuable and that someone else later can't use it and learn from it. So, the what is it? What is that phrase? We stand on the backs of giants or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that.
Isaac Newton, who co-invented calculus, said that I stand on the shoulders of giants. And, he wasn't the
Yeah.
nicest guy in the world, but yeah.
Which is just basically the same thing. Like I didn't come up with this on my own, is what he's saying, right?
Yeah,
And that
he
I
wanted to get.
took other people's research or other
Yeah,
people's knowledge.
yeah, exactly. Even my boy Einstein, there were a lot of people that were working on some of the ideas that you know resulted in what we now call general and special relativity, and he just sort of got there first. But yeah, but yeah,
And these
obviously,
and these diseases are important, man. Like these things are, autism and schizophrenia and all these they're tragic and you know difficult to treat, and they are very some of these people that suffer are become prisoners in
yeah.
their own heads.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I recently lost someone very close to me because of that exact situation. I won't say too much to, out of respect for her family, but I do have some links. One, she was a big animal person, so I put in a link for donating to the ASPCA, but I also put in a bunch of other links that are related to a great organization that does research related to the human brain and human behavior on the subject of schizophrenia and other brain disorders and mental illness, etc. A bunch of other organizations. So look into that. The one,
And we're also gonna do. I mean, I think we are, but you for sure are gonna do a
Mhm.
walk, right?
Yes,
For
it's what's it
go ahead.
called again? I earned a T-shirt from them. Speaking of T-shirts, is
It's
it?
something in the night. I can't remember.
Yeah, the awake awareness. It has to do with suicide prevention. And,
Yeah.
and if anyone knows the Reno Sparks area, it's technically Sparks. Give Sparks, Nevada some love. But there's a great little marina. It's probably one of the best things Sparks has going for it. And people always ask, "What do you do in Reno besides gambling and going other places like Tahoe and Truckee and Virginia City?" Well, you go to Sparks. So technically another area, but you go to Sparks and you check out the
Hmm.
marina. And if you're there on May 31st, you can walk around the marina, possibly with me and Robert, or not. But if you're not there on May 31st, you can still walk there. It's a pretty chill place, and that's where we'll do a walk. And I was able to raise $150 for the cause, so I
So
believe
far, but we're always looking for more. We'll throw that link in there too as well, so you can donate.
exactly. And that being the case, let's see. I'm going to read the thing you were going to say. But yeah, we're not trying to get into the weeds here and all the politics stuff. But if you've been watching the news, some of this research is under threat. So that's why I think some of those organizations, suicide prevention is really good, but continuing the kind of research that Lichtman's doing, however we can make that happen, is a really good thing. There's another link to that podcast that I may throw in there where the host Sean Carroll talks about what's going on, where a lot of that money for the postdocs is now shut down because a lot of the research that's done is done at the university level. Like, there are some areas of reform for education, even at the universities, but the American universities are where really cool research on cancer research, potentially finding a cure for schizophrenia, treatments for autism, you name it, because we model the human brain, etc., are only possible because of the stuff that happens, not just because of the National Institutes of Health and Science and all that, but the universities and science, like go STEM. So that's super important. Sorry to be a little
Yeah, I
political.
mean it's really unfortunate that look, there is probably waste in this. I mean, I'm just going to comment on this because it's something that bothers me, but um, there is waste. We know there is waste within the federal government, right? We
Yeah, for
know that
sure.
there is waste within corporations. We know that there is waste out there, right? Um, but it's really the approach that is important, and the kind of slash and burn kind of approach that we're doing is it really threatens a lot of people's livelihood. It threatens places that a lot of us love. The national park system is under siege right now, and it's along with this research, it's actually pretty sad. And the thing is it's really inconsequential as far as and you and I talked about this as far as the overall budget goes. I mean, if you're not going to touch Medicare and you're not going to touch defense spending, this is just really just screwing over the American people in the long run. You're not going to be able to go out to your favorite park and go hiking, and you're not going to have any research that that could potentially change the world and change your lives. I mean, imagine where we would be without polio research or,
Hmm.
all these things. or cancer research. You know, the reason that you can survive cancer now is because of the billions and billions of dollars that have been thrown into cancer research by not just corporations, but by the federal government and by you, the taxpayer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we're really in a it's I don't know. I mean, it's really unfortunate, you know, and it doesn't really matter what side you're on. Like it's kind of a stupid way to approach this, you know, and you know, the guy who's in charge of doing this and who's you know is really doesn't care about people.
Yeah, I
Or
think
maybe
he's.
he does, but he doesn't. His actions show that he doesn't.
I think he went on a much more popular podcast with a guy named Joe who's bolder than me and said that empathy is a problem. So yeah, I think he literally doesn't care about people. I mean,
Yeah,
you can get into the weeds in defining like words like empathy, but I'm not a linguist and I'm also not a neuroscientist. So
that's right. We should probably get one on we need someone with real expertise on this, right?
yes, you definitely didn't strip the screw on that idea. See what I did? See what I did? Uh, yeah,
Did-
I'd I'd totally settle for a grad student. My plan is to be taking at least one or more classes at the actual campus of UNLV. I've just been taking classes like ethics. I don't know if you can tell I took ethics, but and I picture myself at the UNLV campus, which is a tier one university on research for now. They are on the hit list, but anyway, and I'm getting some coffee, and I meet a grad student, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this sweet podcast. Grad student, would you like to be a guest on my show? And they're like, sweet, I would love to be a guest on your podcast. And that's how I see that playing out. And I think
That's
that's the,
totally how it's gonna go.
yeah, totally. But I think that's the argument. This is a total like pivot, but 180-degree turn or something. But that's the argument on why we should go back to work that I hear from a lot of people is you have this organic kind of serendipity when people are working at the office as opposed to working from home is people just bump into each other and they talk about ideas and so forth. So I mean, I don't know how realistic that is, but definitely when I'm meeting people, who knows, maybe I can snag some guests.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and definitely there is something lost with not being in the office. I can say for personally for my team that I manage that
Mm-hmm.
there is something lost not being in the office and overhearing conversations or um, but there's something gained as well. So that's the trade-off, right? You gain. I don't have anybody swinging by my office, um, just popping their head in, telling me that something's broken and I need to work on it,
Right.
right? They do that virtually now through Teams, and it's much easier to ignore because if I just sat there not acknowledging their existence when they're in my office, it's really awkward and
Yeah.
HR doesn't seem to like it. But really, honestly, like I don't know that we've actually seen any productivity dips. I get it. Um, I really I just think that this comes down to commercial real estate is dying
Mm.
because of it. These companies that really are forcing this RTO mandate. So RTO, right? State of California is doing it.
Okay.
Apple, Amazon. Um, who was the other big one? Facebook.
Oh, Meta.
Uh, all these big companies. They built Google, I believe. They've built these huge campuses. When I went to Seattle, we took a boat tour,
Oh,
and they had literally just finished this. What was it? 2,000 or 5,000 person office Amazon had in Seattle. They had just finished it. Beautiful courtyard, cool ass stuff in it with like all this crazy architecture that probably cost them zillions of dollars to build. It was
right.
open for like 92 days before COVID.
Oh, no.
right? So they invested all this money and capital into this. COVID closes it for 2 years, so of course they're going to force them back into it. They're not going to, they have a hard time with this whole sunk cost, that it doesn't really make any difference at this point because you've already spent the money on it. It doesn't matter if anybody's using it or not, but for it to sit there idle, and then not to mention, I truly believe that the reason that the state of California is forcing their employees to go back is A, because those buildings are empty, and B, because those businesses are dying that used to thrive from there, and that harms tax revenue.
Oh, right.
Right? So, I don't know. I do agree. So that there are that organic meetups and meeting people in person is important, and we actually see that. I think Gen Z is I just read an article about Gen Z like not going out and not meeting people in person and not interacting in person the most out of any generation, and it's probably going to hurt them in the long run. So, I don't know. Take with that what you will.
Well, those are valid points. I do think that the app, I mean, you can love or hate Apple, but that donut-shaped building they have, I guess Steve Jobs came up with that. That's a cool building. Okay. I think it's cool, the little circle thing. But don't you? I think that's probably the majority of the reason. But don't you think part of it is like it's one thing if you get a bunch of emails saying, "Hey, did you finish your TPS report, Robert?" But isn't there something more Darwinian when your middle manager can come into your cubicle and go, "Hey, Robert, did you finish your TPS report?"
Yeah, I mean, really, that's what it's all about, right? So, I mean, that's the whole thing. That's a solid point is that middle managers don't know how to manage remotely.
Mm-hmm.
It creates a new problem, right? And so my boss is in Billings, Montana. He's always been in Billings, Montana, even when I worked in the office.
Okay.
And so, me and him I always joke, like, I'm like, dude, I could fuck off. Oh, excuse the language. I could screw off at work in the office too. I've been doing what I'm doing for a long time. I spent plenty of time sitting in my cubicle in the office watching YouTube videos.
Right.
I don't need to be at home to not be working.
No.
So I don't know. I don't know. I get it. Some of those things is you have to pivot as a manager and just be better about following up, checking in with people, and creating those environments. For my team, we've decided that we are going to have a virtual in-office day, and we do it every Wednesday where we just all sit in the same Teams meeting and all day long, and it's like we're in the office, right? You can bounce things off of each other, you can share each other's screen. We spend a lot of time not talking to each other and just working. And so we've kind of virtually facilitated this in-office experience so that we can overhear and get closer to each other. And that's good and bad. It's not exactly the same, but if you're going to work all virtually, you got to find a way to make it happen. That's what I think as a manager.
And that's a team's meeting is a great opportunity for your middle manager to shame everyone into doing their TPS report.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yes.
You can just rail on them the whole time for 8 hours that day.
Yes. That's awesome. Well, on that note, once again, we did it. We accomplished.
Nothing.
Yeah. See you next time, folks.
Stay frosty. Smash that like subscribe button.